Hi, I'm Nicholas Lodge and welcome to this video where I'll be showing you how to use my new innovative Flower Pro bamboo mold. So let's get started. So this is my Flower Pro bamboo mold. The bamboo mold has three main parts to it. We have the large, we have the medium, and we have the small bamboo. There's also this little additional part here, which is for when you're making lifelike bamboo for the little offshoots from the main stem. Now I have two videos on the bamboo. This video is going to show how to use bamboo, for example, for cakes, for cake sides, for edges of cake boards, for example, for purse handles and things like that. My other one is going to show how to create realistic bamboo, which obviously you can use with sugar flowers like orchids and other tropical flowers. So here I have a cake which is partially finished. I'm going to show you how to do the two main parts of the bamboo. So this is being done with green bamboo. So the green bamboo is obviously this fairly vibrant green. This is going to be painted and dusted. And then I also have bamboo on the edge. You see how it gives a really beautiful edge. This is actually the medium bamboo size. This is the large bamboo size. So of course, depending on the size of your cake or project, you could do this obviously with different size bamboo. If you're doing a larger cake, you could do large bamboo here, a smaller cake, small bamboo. So the choice is yours. Now, when we are doing this on a cake, because the cake will be, obviously if it's a real cake, you would cut and serve this. I'm just going to be using straight sugar paste rolled fondant. I'm using actually here the Renshaw green. This is the sort of the bright green rolled fondant. Of course, you could also color white sugar paste or rolled fondant with some electric green, a sort of lime green sort of color. Okay, now of course bamboo comes in many colors, and you'll see in the different projects I show in this video and in my next video, I'm going to be using all different shades of sort of greens and khakis and cream colors. Now, when we use the bamboo, mold, if you've watched my previous video, this of course goes through this, showing it for lifelike bamboo. But this we're going to be making a number 12 small. This is going to be a number 13, and this is going to be a number 15 small. Okay, and when we do this one, that's actually a number 7. But you'll see this on the leaflet with the bamboo mold. And so we're going to use the medium bamboo. So I'm going to use a number 13. And this is my size guide. This is the new Flower Pro plastic size guide. So this works great because especially when you're working with bright colors like this, you can just wipe this clean. So it will stay very nice and clean. So we're going to measure off a number 13 size ball. Okay, so about a third below, 2/3 above. Okay, so number 13 size. All of the balls of paste will be a little bit more than we need, but it gives you something to stretch and hold on the other end. So as I say, it's just approximate size here. Now, of course, you could measure off several of these and then put them in a bag or underneath a cup. Now, when we're using the mold, because we're using just straight sugar paste or rolled fondant, it's a little softer. But the reason for that is that if we modify this, that means if we add gum to it, it's going to be more difficult to obviously eat. It's going to make the sugar paste or rolled fondant quite firm. So I'm using just straight paste. So generally when I'm doing, like if you've watched my video on using the log slice, the large log slice, and the continuous bark, those are both just be done with straight fondant. Now, alternatively, this could also be modeling chocolate as well. You can just make white modeling chocolate and then color that with an electric or lime green color. And that, of course, would taste really yummy too. Now, we're going to use a brush, all right? So I'm going to use a brush. This is actually a stencil brush, so it's got sort of fairly short bristles. And I'm just going to take just a little bit of vegetable shortening and put on the back of my hand. And I'm just going to just rub that into you can also do this with your finger, but I've actually started using the brush quite a lot now because I'm just putting a very, very minimal amount on here. And this will just aid with release because particularly this is a softer paste, all right? And you keep that brush just for that purpose. Now I'm going to condition my paste just by working a little bit of vegetable shortening into it. And then we're going to roll this into a sausage. So I can just use a little cornstarch here. It's going to roll this into a little sausage, approximately about the length of the mold. Okay, so you're just going to use that to about the length of the mold like this. Okay. Now then what we're going to do is going to take the mold, and then with my mold here, I'm going to start at one end, and I'm going to put that just right at the end of the mold. And then I'm going to take with my cosmetic sponge, you see how I'm pushing and I'm pulling with the other end, okay? So I'm right-handed, so I'm using my right hand with my cosmetic sponge, and my left hand is going to be pulling the other end. And of course, if you're left-handed, it would be the opposite way around. You see, so you've got that little bit of extra paste, and that is on purpose because it gives you something to hold on to, okay? All right, so you see how that's gonna fill that in beautifully. And then you'll see how there's like 3 steps. There's a bottom step, a mid step. So what we then do is you take your Flour Pro scraper, and we're just gonna go along here and just gonna press this on. So just gonna make sure, so see how I'm using the scraper and just rubbing down there. So it means we have a perfectly flat back, all right? Now I'm going to use my little flexi scraper. I'm just gonna cut off the 2 ends here. Now a little later in this video, I will be showing you how you can make a longer piece of paste. So if you wanted a longer piece, you can of course use this technique and just pull it through the mold. I will be showing you that a little later in this video. Now, so then what we do is we're just going to just flex the mold like so, and just gonna release this from the mold. So we're just gonna release this from the mold here. All right, and you have this really fantastic, as I said, bamboo texture, okay? If you do have any like overcut, that means where you just get a little bit of extra paste, but that's why I use the scraper to do this. Now, this bamboo, as you can see, all right, this is made actually a little bit bigger than, it's about 8.5 inches, all right? So it's basically about 21.5 centimeters. So a standard 4-inch cake or 10 centimeter high cake, it means you can cut this in half, and then you can of course use 2 of these to do your bamboo. Now, when we're using a bamboo, you'll also see how the bamboo is not symmetrical, meaning that you've got different size pieces. So we're going to cut this to the depth of the cake. So I'm going to do this 4 inches or 10 centimeters. All right, so I'm going to cut that one here, like so. Okay, and then you can either cut from here to here. So depending on because when you put these side by side, you see how they're going to be the same, all right, which we don't basically want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this one the other way around, and I will cut that. So usually you flip the piece like so, you see? So you have, because when you're putting these side by side, you don't want them to look exactly the same. Now, in the bamboo here, for the top of the bamboo, you can see how we're gonna do sort of almost like a half ring. So this looks like the sort of bamboo on the green part, because when you cut bamboo, which this would be like a cut green bamboo, you're gonna have a sort of a lighter green on the inside like this. So what we do there is you're going to use 2 things. This is a Wilton number 2A piping tip, or you can also use like a bubble tea straw. This is just a jumbo straw. You can see it's a comparable size, okay? Bubble tea straws obviously are longer, and you can just cut this down. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the straw or the piping tip on your finger, and then we're just going to use this and just going to mark that. So you see how what I've done is I've just marked the half bamboo piece, all right? And I will then do the same here. Just going to mark that. So you're just going to get this line, so you get that sort of nice realistic cut on the top. Now, when you do this, I use a piece of fun foam. So fun foam you'll buy in the craft store, okay? And what I do with the fun foam is you're going to then take your first 2, and of course, when you do the first ones, you're going to just put them side by side. But then when you do the next ones, you see how I've made them so they're all not the same, all right? Because if you look at this one here, this one pretty much is going to be the same as that one, because that was obviously cut in the same way. But so you're just going to flip them, so you just move them around. And remember, you can cut either end, so you're going to get that nice natural look, okay? And so you just place these on some fun foam. And normally I would make about 8 of these. So I do another 2, another 2, another 2. And then once you've got 8 of them, I stick my first 2 on, then I make another 2, then stick so basically you're letting them dry for a few minutes, all right? Just a couple, 2 or 3 minutes. Now, when we attach these to the cake, so first of all, this cake here I've done in panel method. So I've put a thin, obviously sugar paste rolled fondant on the top, and then a thin coat on the side, all right? But if you're doing this for a real, this is actually a dummy cake I have here because I'll use it for display. But if this was a real cake, what you do is just put sugar paste on the top, and then I could actually use either like buttercream or ganache on the side, but actually tint that in the same sort of color. So you get a greeny color like that. So that would mean that then you're not, when you eat this as a real cake, you're not cutting through like the sugar paste fondant here, plus also the sugar paste on the side. So this can just be attached directly to a green buttercream or green ganache. Now, an alternative for this style cake would be like I showed in my Flower Pro Book 1. This was a rustic topper. Okay, and this rustic topper here, this was made with my Winter Spice cinnamon stick and orange slice and star anise mold from my NL collection by Katy Designs. There is a YouTube which shows how to do this, but this was actually done on a 4-inch cake dummy. All right, so this is a 4-inch cake dummy by 3 inches or 7.5 centimeters long, because that's the height of the cinnamon stick. And then I did this as a cake dummy, and the video shows how I put a really thin layer of brown sugar paste around the side and then attach the cinnamon sticks. So what's really nice about doing this type of topper is this could be then taken off and kept as a memento of the wedding. So it's almost, this would be done as a little dummy. But also when you're using a lot of flowers, so let's say you're doing an Asian themed wedding cake and you want to do a lot of orchids and bamboo and all different Asian flowers, you could use this same concept, but maybe make it deeper like I have here, which would be a 4-inch, 10 centimeter deep cake. The cake I'm actually showing you here is 5 inches. So 12.5 centimeters in size. And you could then just arrange the flowers, push the flowers into the top of this, and then again, the client could take the whole thing off the top of the cake. So as I said, so this could be done as a cake or as a dummy cake, you could also do this as a separator. In between the tiers of the cake, so there's lots and lots of fun ways of using this. Now, when we attach this, we're going to use piping gel. So you can either use piping gel in a needle tip applicator, or you can use just piping gel with a paintbrush and just brush a little bit of piping gel on the back. We want something that's got a little bit of body to it. So and of course, if you're attaching this to buttercream or ganache, if your buttercream or ganache is just warmed slightly, because naturally as you start sticking these on, it's going to soften, you can just press it straight onto the top. So then I'm going to take the first two, all right? So I'm going to take my first two, I'm going to turn them over, and I'm just going to put just a little bit of piping gel just down the middle here. This is a needle tip applicator. You can also use corn syrup as well. I'm just going to brush just go down with my paintbrush. And you can see how then I'm going to attach these. So this is going to be attached. All right. And then of course, this actually one worked out perfect because I've just gone round here and I've just got exactly the right number here. But when you get to the last one, obviously you start at the back of the cake. When you get to the last one, if you need to, you can squash it a little bit to make it a little bit thinner, trim the top if it needs to be a little bit skinnier. All right, you could even, because it's the back of the cake, you could actually use a small one there if you're using the medium ones, all right? And just gonna put these on here to give this nice natural effect. So you see how you have this really beautiful technique. But the reason why we would mask the cake with green buttercream or green ganache is that when you see through the gaps there, you don't wanna see basically like a vanilla buttercream or white ganache, okay? Chocolate could also work as well, like a chocolate ganache or chocolate buttercream. So that is how we would do the side of the cake. Now, of course, these pieces could also be used in lots of other ways. You can actually do the small bamboo. You could actually cut those. So you could actually make like initials. So you can actually sort of cut them. So you can cut them and you can use angles. And then you can obviously take your next one like this. So you see, so you can make like angled pieces. You could use, obviously make letters in here. So if it was for like a 70th birthday, you know, you can do all sorts of things. See like here. So you could turn that into like a 7, you know, so you could do, like if you're doing a tiki themed birthday cake. So you can use, this is very, very sort of innovative mold. And I said, you can use this in lots and lots of different ways. So that's the first use of the bamboo on the cake side. So when you're doing the cake board, I have used here Kerry Griffith's Creative Cake System. This is the rattan mat. And this is perfect, it's a continuous rattan, obviously perfect for this sort of Asian theme. And rattan is used obviously for like baskets and purses and all different sorts of types of things. So this is really nice textural detail, works perfectly with the bamboo. So if you watch Kerry's video, there is a video which shows how to use a continuous rattan mold. And that is done with modified sugar paste or rolled fondant. That means you're adding Tylose or CMC. A little later on in this video, I will be showing you actually how to modify the paste for the base of a round cake board. But anyway, so that's obviously done, and this is a continuous piece, so you just join this up. And then around the edge of the cake board, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the large bamboo, okay? So I'm going to use the large bamboo molded pieces. And when I make that, I'm going to use here just an ivory color because this is going to be painted like a sort of more of a dry bamboo. So this is going to be like a sort of a brownie cream color. So I've just got some sugar paste here, rolled fondant. And this has been modified, as I said, which you're going to see in the next segment. So I took 115 grams of this and I added 1/4 teaspoon of Tylose, 1/4 teaspoon of vegetable shortening. And 115 grams will be enough to do the 4 molded pieces, okay, which is approximately 4 ounces. Now for the large bamboo here, which is what I'm going to use, we're going to use a number 15 small size piece of paste. So this wants to be a number 15 that just sort of goes through the hole. Okay, so that would be the size we need. But this has been modified because it's a cake board edge and we want it to dry a little quicker. So by adding the Tylose or CMC, and because this isn't going to be eaten, this of course is, as I said, we're going to use modified paste. Because most of my Flower Pro, like when I do my pine cones and my poppy seed heads and my antlers and all of those, I'm using modified sugar paste or rolled fondant. So we're going to roll this into your sausage. Okay, so you're just going to roll this into your sausage like this, about the length of your mold. Okay, and then we're going to take your mold here again and going to just take your, remember, just a little bit, and you don't have to do this every time, just going to do this for your 4 pieces, however many you need. If your paste does start to stick, but a very, very tiny amount of the vegetable fat or shortening here. Okay, and then you can also, if your paste, you know, when you're working especially with just the sugar paste, like for the green bamboo, if it does seem a little sticky, you know, you can put a little bit of corn flour on there as well. So again, we're going to use the same concept. All right, so here, so we're going to use the same concept. So you see how I'm just going to use my cosmetic sponge, and then with my, you see with my, I'm sort of tugging on this to keep tension on it, because what this means, you don't overfill the mold. Okay, you see on the end there, so when we do the very end, if you hold your flexi scraper, you see how you're going to get a nice end on there as well. Okay. Now, if you were wanting this, so this is an 8-inch cake board, all right? So this is basically a 20 centimeter cake board, but if you wanted this to be longer, all right, what you do there is you just would carefully take this out of the mold. So you just would carefully take this out of the mold here, like so, and then you're just gonna move it along. So what I'm doing here, I'm putting it back into, see where we have the line there, just gonna put that back into the mold, just open up the mold like that, and then you can continue along. So you can make this as long as you want, you see? So when you're doing this going around the cake board, or if you're doing a bigger square cake board, you can use this technique, all right? But as I said, of course, I'm using here a number, as I said, the number 15 small size, but you're just gonna use this to the size you need. Now, so of course, if you're making this the size of the mold, this is gonna give you your piece that you'll have here, like this. All right, now what you're gonna do with, when I'm doing this on a square board, I found it's easier to let this dry a little bit, all right? So I'm gonna just leave this for about 2 or 3 hours, okay? So what's gonna happen is gonna firm up. And then what you will then do is you're gonna use you're gonna take an X-Acto knife, okay? So with an X-Acto knife, and then you're actually gonna cut this at a miter. So you're gonna actually cut this with your X-Acto knife here. So you're gonna cut the edge at an angle, like that. This one is just the one I've just shown you, but as I said, so you get this angled cut, all right? And then, so what you'll end up with is you see like an angled cut at each end. This is, you can see it's still flexible, okay? So you're just gonna make a cut here, and then what you're gonna do is going to attach this to the board. Now, when you attach this to the cake board, what we're actually gonna do here is we're gonna mix up, so of course you'd make 4 of these, but you could use this on a hexagonal shaped cake board, so you'd make 6 of them. So just measure the approximate size you need for each side. So we're gonna take some, this is just some of the leftover paste, okay? And I'm just gonna soften a little bit of this down with some water. Just gonna take a water spray bottle here. I'm just gonna just spray some water into here. I'm just gonna mush this up a little bit with my fingers to start off with. Now what we're doing here is we're making a thick glue, and because on the corners where this meets, we're going to be filling this in with this product as well. So just going to start mixing it up with your fingers. That's usually the easiest way to do this. Okay, and then just going to wipe your hands. And then you can just take a little small mini palette knife here. Okay, and I've just made this softened paste. So you can see it's almost a bit like a sort of royal icing consistency. Okay, so we have that ready to go. Now the cake board I have, this is a round version of the square one. You need to use some little feet. These are just little stick-on feet. All right, you could use a smaller cake drum, foam board, you know, basically something just to elevate it, but you can buy these in a hardware store. And as I said, you're just gonna put these underneath. So this elevates it, because when we do the bamboo here, we want the bamboo to come to the edge, but we want to elevate this up so it's not gonna get, when you move it on and off the table, if you don't have the feet there, you're gonna break the bamboo off. So we're gonna take the piece of bamboo, okay? So I've already got 3 pieces of bamboo on here, okay? So I'm gonna take my 4th piece of molding, okay? Remember, you only need to cut sort of 1/2 of it. So you're gonna, when you put the first one on, so what you'll then do is you're gonna take the softened paste. I'm just gonna take a little bit of the softened paste, going to put onto here. But this was made about 3 hours ago, this one, so it still has a little bit of flexibility in it, okay? But even if you left it overnight or for longer than that, it's still going to be fairly easy to cut. So you're going to put this on. And then you're going to need a couple of pins, all right? So I'm just using some little pins here. And then what I would do is, so when you put the first one on, you're going to attach it to the side. And then you're going to take your pins and just going to just pin into the board, into the cake board. So you can use 2 or 3 pins. So remember, when you put the first one on, you've only cut this angle. You're just going to cut one angle, all right? And then what I would then do is you come along to the edge of the board and you'll just mark and then just carefully cut through like this, you see? So then you're going to get your angles. Now this is still soft enough that I can then sort of just push this together as needed, okay? And then once you get this completed, so these 3 have already been stuck. I actually did this yesterday, so these obviously have been stuck. So then you will take a little bit of your softened fondant here, and then you're just going to just put a little bit of that softened fondant. You're just going to use that on your companion tool. I'm just going to use your finger here. I'm just going to fill that in on the corner. So you're just going to fill that in like that, you see? And so this is going to be used for the seams. And just going to pop the softened fondant into here. Again, just going to use your finger here. Just going to fill that in. And then we would just let that dry. I will finish off the other ones in a little while, but you're just going to attach so of course you'd have your 4 sides on, so you make the pieces, let them dry for about 3 hours, cut and attach them at an angle. Because of the way the square board, this is better to do this sort of almost like mitered corners rather than cutting them square. On some things we can of course get away with doing square edges, but here by cutting them at a miter, you're going to get a much nicer look, okay? And that is how we would do the cake board. Now, next step on this would be to let this all dry, okay? And then once this is all dry, then you would paint this and dust it and finish off the bamboo and finish off the board. So I will be coming back and showing you that a little later. So I'm going to show you how to first of all modify some sugar paste or rolled fondant. So I have here 115 grams, it's approximately 4 ounces, okay? And I've made this a dark cream color. This is going to actually be done on a a red fondant board, and I'm actually going to show you how to attach this around the side of a round board. And then this is going to be painted gold. So this has a really sort of stunning effect with the red and the gold. And so if you were doing like a Chinese wedding, or as I said, an Asian themed wedding cake, obviously red and gold are very significant colors used. So we take 150 grams. So I've just made this a much darker cream. And because when you paint things gold, generally you start either with a dark cream like this or a yellow, okay? And I'm going to modify this. So this is how I did the modified fondant for the edge of the square board. And so you're going to take 1/4 teaspoon of CMC or Tylose and 1/4 teaspoon of vegetable shortening, which I generally just do by eye. And I'm just going to mix these two together. Now, when we use this, a lot of times we often mix this and then we leave it for 15-20 minutes to firm up a little bit, like when I do things like pine cones. But because, as you can see, this bamboo is a more basic shape, a more basic mold, you can just use this with straight sugar paste, like I showed on the green bamboo on the side of the round cake. But the reason why we're adding the Tylose here is once this is actually on the cake, the Tylose will help to make this firm up and dry more quickly. So then you will then just measure off your paste. So again, so this is going to be in number 15 small. Just want to just go through the number 15 hole. Of course, you can measure, this particular cake board is a smallish board, so it's just an 8-inch, 20-centimeter board. So it takes actually about 3 sections to do this. So again, we're going to take your, and I've already got obviously the vegetable shortening in here. So it's going to make this into your sausage. Length of the mold. Just remember, you know, in a lot of my Flour Pro projects, the size ball of paste is exact. Right here, each of the pieces is a little bit more than you need to have something to hold on to. I just found it's easier to do this because you can actually sort of hold on to the end of that. You see again, because you want this to be level with the mold. And then remember, you can use your scraper. So just hold your scraper there like so. So you can hold your scraper and then you can just push that on like there. So you see how you're going to get this nice level piece. But remember, as I just previously showed you, if you wanted to, you could take this out, move it along, and then make it longer. And if you started off with like a number 16 size, you could make this twice the length of the mold. Now, the only thing is when you start getting the pieces too long, it's more difficult to deal with. And remember, you're just going to then just take with your Flour Pro scraper, just going to just go along here. So just make sure that you see it's level. Just press this on with the scraper and it's going to work very well. It's going to use sawing action. Okay. And then you're going to just flex the mold. Take your bamboo out. You see the detail is incredible when you've got all those lovely natural imperfections in the bamboo, you know, because you have that really beautiful, as I said, look. Now, you're going to use the same technique here, where we're going to turn this over. I've already got some softened paste here, so this is some of the same technique I just showed on the lighter ivory color. You can see the difference between the two colors. You see this is more of a caramelly color, and this is more of a light brown. Just because I'm going to be doing slightly different things, but because this is going to be painted gold. There we go. This just needs a little tiny bit more water in it. It's just... Now, if you add too much water and it becomes too soft, then it's very easy. You just take a little bit more of your paste and add to it, okay? And this will keep for a long time. So you just keep this in a little plastic container like this. Just going to put a little bit of this down the middle here. Mostly down the center. Not too close to the edge because you want this to sort of stick. A little bit too much there. There we go. Okay. All right, now this one, we're going to, again, this cake board has been elevated. Okay. So here, so what we're going to do is, again, we need some pins. And you're just going to just take your piece here. Now you could make the pieces you need, like the 3 pieces you need, and then you could actually stick them on. It doesn't matter if this dries for a few minutes. So I'm just joining that up. Again, I'm just going to put the pins in here. And then just where it comes to the other end there, I'm just going to just trim that. You can use an X-Acto knife, but just be careful if you're using X-Acto knives because of your... Okay, and then we're just going to pin this. So this needs to go on while it's sort of soft, or as I said, dried a little bit. So literally, as I said, you could make all 3 of these, and then you could dry them, and then you could stick them on. Okay, and then I'm going to just use my companion tool here. I'm going to just make sure that there's no paste sticking out. Just going to just clean this up. Okay, and then this is going to be, of course, this will be painted gold. So this is going to be gold bamboo around the edge of this. So again, I will just take just use as many pins as you need to, just to sort of hold it. And of course, this could be put into a food dehydrator. So if obviously you're making the cake board first, this can go into a food dehydrator, and then of course you can dry it. And then you can let it dry a little bit, or you can do this straight away. Again, we're just going to just fill in with your softened paste here. So I'm just going to just fill this in just with your little companion tool. And this will just fill in the, as I said, the bamboo where that meets. Okay, and I'm going to finish this one off. And then, as I said, when I come back, I'm going to show you the painting on the green bamboo, on the rattan, on the other bamboo, and then moving on to the painting on the metallics. So I'll be right back. So now moving on to the coloring. So on the bamboo, as you can see, we're going to add some contrast green and a little bit of chocolate brown. So I'm going to use here some moss green. So this is a sort of a darker green, but we want that just because we've got a bright green underneath. So I'm going to use this on a napkin, just using a sort of an oval shaped brush. And then what I'll do here is I'm just going to just brush up and down, just gently with the brush. I'm not loading too much color onto the brush. And it's just going to sort of pick up the detail from the bamboo. Okay, so that's going to be done on all of the bamboo, which obviously I've done the rest. And then I'm going to take some, this is just a lightened chocolate. So this is chocolate brown or chocolate. And then I've added a little bit of corn flour, cornstarch to this. Okay, so it's going to, again, just going to put this onto a napkin. And I have here an angled brush. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just sort of brush this onto the, I'm using the brush on its side like this, just going to brush this onto the, where the lines are on the bamboo. And then on the top edge, I'm going to just sort of brush this just gently around the top edge. So you're just going to sort of define that, the edge of the bamboo here, okay? And don't worry if this is irregular, because you actually want it to look natural. And also, you could extend this up beyond the top. So if you cut these like just over 4 inches, about 4 1/4 inches, you could actually have a recess to put your flowers into as well. So depending on how you're going to use that. So that's going to be your, as I said, your bamboo. And so that's going to be the dusting. And then next I'm going to show you how we do the cake board. So I have here a cream colored gel, and I want to make this quite diluted. So I want to just sort of, this gives this nice sort of rattan color. So I'm using some vodka here added to my, now you could do this with an airbrush. It's just that if you are doing it with an airbrush, because of overspray, I probably would suggest like doing the cake separate, and then once the cake is done, put it onto the board. But we're going to take this, so you want quite a weak, quite a weak sort of solution. And then I'm going to use a sort of a smallish, like the brush I just used for the brown. And I'm just going to just sort of brush around the bottom here. So you see how I can actually get into the, underneath the bamboo. And it doesn't matter if you get a little bit of that brown onto there, because it's all sort of tonal and will work fine with that. I'm also just going to just brush down with this angled brush like this, just sort of down the edge here where the fondant edge of the rattan meets the bamboo. And then I'm going to use my brush. I'm using a fairly large brush here. Just sort of pounce, using like a sort of bounce-in technique. So this is going to make sure that gets into all of the detail. And then we're also going to just paint this onto the bamboo. So we're just going to put this sort of, this base color. So just going to make sure you brush underneath the bamboo as well. Okay? Because you know bamboo is a slightly yellowy color, so you're going to use that nice nice color. So as I said, it's like a sort of caramelly color, but as I said, just a cream color. If you don't have cream gel color, just use some ivory and put a little bit of yellow into it. All right, and you can of course just try the color out, but just don't make it too dark. Okay, and you see how you're going to get this nice color. So then we're going to take some brown. So this is just some chocolate brown color here, and I'm going to use some brown. I'm just going to mix this up. Again, not too dark. Okay, so I'm going to take this brown, and then I'm going to use this is called a fan brush, okay? So you use a fan brush like when you're doing like wood grain, you can do that to do like lines like that, you see? So you can actually use this. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to use the fan brush because this is just going to give you a sort of more of a natural. And I'm just brushing across the top of this. And then I'm actually going to, on the bamboo, I'm going to just drag down the bamboo like that. So just going to get these sort of, these lines coming down the bamboo. So this is just a quick way of sort of doing that effect. So you're just going to use you can just use your bamboo. These have got fairly delicate bristles on them, so just be careful. And especially when you wash this as well, just make sure you just rinse this and then just do that on paper towel, because you don't want to damage the bristles there. But this is called a fan brush, okay? So it would be from like an art supply store, but it's a nice way to get that sort of those lines you can see on your on the bamboo, okay? Now then I'm going to take just a round brush here, and then with a round brush, this is just a 6-0 brush. I'm just going to just paint into the lines with the brown. So you're just going to bring that, and this is just going to paint into the lines with the brown like that. So this is going to come along. And then you can let this dry, and then you know, once this is dry, then you can, you know, like obviously this is still a little sticky, but once it's dry, then if you needed to, you could go in with a little bit more, and if you have any little areas where you need to clean up, but you see how you get this nice sort of rattan look to it. And then what I'm going to do is going to just take some steam. Now I'm just going to steam the side of the cake, so I'm using my clothes steamer here. Okay, so I'm going to take my little clothes steamer here, like so. And then I've got this on a turntable, and then I'm just going to very lightly steam the side of the cake. That's just going to give a little bit of natural luster, because when you use painting or gel color, you're going to get a little bit. So you're just going to literally lightly steam, just very, very lightly, the side of the cake here, like so, just for a couple of, and that's just going to, as I said, give your bamboo this really nice natural look. Okay, so here we have our cake decorated with, as I said, my large bamboo here for the green bamboo. Then we have the Creative Cake System by Kerry Griffiths, the rattan mat. Now that is also really beautiful to use on cookies, you know, so obviously if you're doing an Asian theme, there's obviously a lot of times we can use this type of theme. I mean, there's a lot of like Disney movies like Mulan, Kung Fu Panda. I mean, so there's lots of types of things. Obviously, again, if you're doing a cake with like a panda theme, like an animal theme, but also, as I said, for example, for more masculine birthday, you know, bamboo is a perfect choice because it's not sort of floral, but it's really lovely for a garden wedding. So there's many, many occasions where you could use this sort of style of cake. But you see how the cake board has really like elevated the whole look of everything, because you have that same sort of like, as I said, look. So this is how we would finish off this, this cake. Now in my second video, first video, which is the one on actually more realistic bamboo, I will be showing at the end of that video how to assemble Vanda orchids made with my Ultimate Orchid Mold and then also the bamboo on the top of this cake to make a really stunning, as I said, anniversary cake, birthday cake, celebration cake. And so that's the how we would do the bamboo. Now next I'm going to show you how we paint the metallic on the bamboo on the round cake board. So once your bamboo is set, you're going to just carefully take out your pins. And then we're ready to paint. Now, there are many options we have on metallic, all right? So because this is a cake board, it's not going to be eaten. You could use like a metallic, this is a non-edible highlighter, right? So this is used for decorative pieces that will be removed, but in the case of a cake board, that's going to give you more of a metallic sort of gold. When you use this product, I generally use either orange oil or citrus oil, like lemon oil or orange oil, and you can mix that and paint that on. And that's really the easiest way to use it because it's very fluid. Alternatively, you can also mix this with confectioner's glaze. And with confectioner's glaze, you brush this on. So the confectioner's glaze, when it dries, will actually dry with more of a like an enamel sort of finish. So it means you can actually touch the board. But because this cake board has got feet on it, there's no reason why you would have to touch it. If you use the orange oil, then that's going to go on very, very fluid and very, very nice. Alternatively, you can use an edible gold. So this is a rainbow dust metallic gold. These are totally edible. And you give this a little shake and they come in pots. They also come in this click twist brush. So these brushes, you're just going to twist them so the gold will come out, and then you can use the little brush to paint these. Most economical way to use these is to use the pot. And when you're doing a larger surface area, I would give that a shake, and then you can, I normally just put it under a little container like this, and then you can even put that back in the container. So we're going to use a brush. And when you do this, you brush, going to brush around here like this, and again making sure that you brush this onto the edge, and you can go back and put a second coat on this, but you don't want to do that until it's dry, because if you, for example, if you put a second coat on like straight away, you're going to actually sort of almost like brush it off. It's almost like a sort of a glycerin based product, so glucose-based product, so you want to just make sure that you, as I said, but you can leave this to dry and then you could come back if you wanted to, but you see how it's going to give, and I really like this when I'm thinking more of a sort of a Chinese red and gold. I actually prefer the look of this slightly yellowy gold. But the other thing is that using that base color, like sort of really dark cream or a yellow, will give you a much better foundation. And if you were going to use, let's say you're doing a contemporary wedding cake in gray and silver, where you wanted to use, you wanted to do this in silver, you'd start off with gray paste, okay? Now, when you're painting, of course, sometimes you'll be painting, you might get just like a little bit of gold, like onto your cake board. You see how I've just got a little bit of gold on there. So how I clean that up, and these are water soluble, so I can actually take that and I could put this back into the container. So I can take this and pour it back in the container and just wash that up with water. If you're using confectioner's glaze, of course you have to use a cleaner. This is, you can just use a little dropper bottle. This is actually, this is from a nail salon, but this has actually got some alcohol in here. So you're just going to use the alcohol, and I'm using a cosmetic Q-tip. So the cosmetic Q-tip has a fine end onto it. So you're just going to use that. And what this is going to do, this is going to clean up the gold off the board, you see? Because when you're painting things with gold, it's sometimes easy to get the gold or the metallic onto there, but this cleans up really well. And this will work both for the metallics and, as I said, for any of them, but just use this. And then, you know, once you've used that, of course, you can use the other side of it, but then you just would throw the little cosmetic Q-tip away. So this is a cosmetic Q-tip. And as I said, you can find these online. This is from a nail salon, obviously for putting alcohol in. And but as I said, it works well. It's a good way to just get a little bit of alcohol on there. But you could also have a little pot of alcohol. I'm using here Everclear, Everclear is very unique to the United States. It's a commercial version basically of like moonshine. So it has a very high alcohol content. So this is really good because it evaporates very quickly. But alternatively, like vodka can be used as well here also. But you wouldn't use water because it won't evaporate. It would stay sticky. So that's how we will clean up the board. So here you have a beautiful metallic effect with the bamboo. And so this is going to be ready to have a cake put on top of that. And it's going to be decorated with sort of an Asian theme as well. So when you are making cookies, so these show some sort of cookies in a sort of an Asian rattan and bamboo theme. What I've done here with the cookie is I've put some sugar paste and rolled fondant into Kerry Griffith's rattan mold. Just press that in, and then you just cut out with your cookie or biscuit cutter to the size you need. Then you're just gonna, as I said, put those to one side so they can dry a little bit. And then you would move on to, of course, make the bamboo. So the bamboo would just be half pieces of bamboo. So of course you can do these in different colors. This one is in a cream, this one was in green. And of course you have 3 different thicknesses to choose from. And as far as the leaves go, when you watch my other video, when I show how to make, of course, the wired bamboo, the more natural bamboo, I'm going to be using here my wedding foliage mold. So my wedding foliage mold is in book number 3. And the Italian ruscus, which is here, this is what I actually will be using for the bamboo leaves. So here you're going to use number 6 size for the large, and number 6 small for the medium, and number 5 small for the small leaf. So if you watch my Italian ruscus video, basically, or in the books, it has the sizes. Now what we're going to do here is you've got 2 options. You can make the leaf, so you can just make the leaf just by pressing the paste into the mold. And also, secondly, you won't need to worry about veining these, because the back of these, because you're not going to see them. So one way is just do that. Then you could pipe the stem. So the stem could be piped with green royal icing. So you just make some green royal icing, this sort of color, and you use that. And then the second option is you can actually use this little part of the mold here. So this little part of the mold, which is the little channel, the hollow where the wire will go, we can actually use that. So what that means, you actually have almost a stem included in it. So I have here a number 6 small piece of paste. So this is green. This is obviously called gum paste or flour paste here. Getting just a little bit of shortening into the mold. And then we're just going to make this into little carrot shape like this. Your paste is a bit sticky, and just pop it in. And then I'm going to put this in the medium. Generally, unless you're doing a large cookie, you would generally use the medium or the small size. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to push this paste into the mold, to the end of the mold, and I'm coming down here. I'm also going to just press that into the little stem as well. And then you're going to use your little scraper here. So with your flexi scraper, just push that in, and then you're just going to use just like a sawing action. You can just sort of patch that with your press that into the mold. And if this comes away, you can also just roll a little sausage and press it in. And I'm just going to trim that off at the edge of the mold here. And then when we take that out, you see how it's going to have the little extension on the bottom of the leaf. Okay, but as I said, you know, if you have green royal icing, that's sort of not quite as fiddly, so you could just use some green royal icing. I'm going to place this onto my cosmetic sponge, and I'm going to just vein down the middle of this with my little companion tool. So as I said, that's a leaf with the stem attached. That's without the stem. And you can take your, so what I've done here is, first of all, once you're veneer, this part here, like I call a veneer, I just would paint that in the same way as I showed on the rattan cake board. I used an ivory cream color, a little bit of brown with the fan brush. I've attached the bamboo that's been dusted and painted, and said if you watch my main video on the bamboo, you'll see how I do different coloring. And of course, these were just cut into pieces. So the idea is of course, from a bamboo piece, you can cut many of these sections to use for your cookies and things. I've attached that with some piping gel, and then just attached the leaves. I put a little bit of green dust on those as well. And then just like I've talked about the purse handle, then I would take some vegetable shortening, again brush over these, because the spray lacquer has a little bit of a bitter taste to it. So if you were doing these on a cookie where somebody's going to consume this, you don't want it to have a bitter taste. So whereas the vegetable fat or coconut oil doesn't have any flavor to it. So this is the best way to make things shiny for cookies, is to use just the vegetable fat there. And as I said, this stem could be piped, or it could be the way of using the actual stem from the mold. So that is sort of how we would do some sort of Asian themed cookies, all right? So this could obviously tie in with, as I said, lots of different themes, but a really nice way to do the bamboo. And then you can also do, like for example here, I've got here a cupcake where I've got some bamboo on here, so some bamboo. And then I've got here a little, like almost like a cherry blossom or plum blossom. That's actually made in my ultimate filler flower mold. All right, so that is actually, so in my book number 1, if you follow the directions for making the cherry blossoms, when I made the cherry blossoms here, I use this technique to make the cherry blossoms. Let's find these in the book. And so you're just really, all you're doing is you're using, so you're just following the directions for the cherry blossoms in book 1. And then when you get to this stage, rather than putting wires and stamens in, I've just used little tiny yellow nonpareils. So I just put a little bit of piping gel in there and some yellow nonpareils, dried it in a convoluted foam. Now, so when you're doing bamboo like this, where you want this sticking up, okay, what I'm going to do there is I'm going to use the same technique. It's going to show you this. So the same technique as we would use for making the bamboo. And of course, you could do a whole strip of this, but a lot of times I would just take a piece of paste. So I'm going to just show you here actually with some modeling chocolate. Now, when you use modeling chocolate, because modeling chocolate has oil in it, you don't usually have to put vegetable shortening or fat in the mold. But the idea is you're just going to take your modeling chocolate here and just going to place that into the mold like that. Okay. And then you can just cut off the bottom of this. And then what I normally do when I'm doing this, now you can make these in different lengths, okay? So you can make them in different lengths there, like that. But what I normally do is I just take spaghetti, because spaghetti gives you a totally edible support system. If you watch my mold on using my Flower Pro toadstools and mushroom mold, you'll see how I use spaghetti when I'm putting these onto the bûche de Noël or onto cupcakes. So the idea is you take some spaghetti, okay? And again, with the spaghetti there, we're going to put just a little bit of piping gel onto the spaghetti. And you just decide on how long you want this to be. So you're just going to put the spaghetti on the top there, like so. I'm just going to press this in, okay? And then you're just going to flex your mold, so your bamboo will come out. So this is going to give you a bamboo piece like this. And then you can, of course, trim this to you can cut it at an angle like that. And then if you want it to be a little bit shorter, you can just cut through the modeling chocolate or the paste. So you see how you're going to make your piece of bamboo like this, okay? And then when you're doing the bamboo, of course, you could use paste leaves, but because they're a little bit heavier, we don't really have a way of attaching those. So what I would probably recommend is to use like wafer paper. So this is a wafer or rice paper. So this is a green, already comes green. So you have a rough side and a shiny side. And what I've done there is I just put a little tiny bit of piping gel or some super bond onto the rough surface. And I put the other rough surface down. So you're sandwiching it so it will be shiny both sides. You can use just a single leaf, but it's going to look a little thin. And so you see I've laminated the two pieces together. And then all you then would do is you just take your pair of scissors, and then you're just going to just cut you can use your ruscus sort of as a guide, but you're just going to cut these into a thin leaf shape. And again, using a little tiny bit of piping gel or your super bond, you can put those together. So you can use a piping gel, a little bit of piping gel here. And then you can stick the two leaves together like that. Okay, so that will hold the leaves. So you do 2 or 3 leaves. And then all you then would do is you just would position the leaves where you want them to go on the bamboo. And again, just going to take my piping gel needs to just be cleaned, the end of the tube. But you can just put a little bit of piping gel like on here. And you see then you would attach the bamboo like that. All right, then you let it dry. You see, so the leaf is just attached to the back of the bamboo like that. And then all you're going to do is you're just going to dust the front with a little bit of green on the bamboo. And then you're going to just dust the bamboo itself. And that will give you as you can see here, the sort of bamboo leaves, all right? And you can also, when you're doing these leaves, when you're doing the basic leaf shape, if you want to make them, because again, if you have a bakery, you have to think about time as well. But you can also, with the bamboo, you can take that and you can actually put the bamboo leaf onto a cosmetic sponge, and you can actually vein down the middle of that as well. So you can actually sort of vein down the center of the bamboo, so you can give like a little sort of a line down there also, okay? But of course you can do shading on the right wafer paper, but that's just an alternative you could use for cupcakes, all right? Because when we're using these in cupcakes, you want to have something that, as I said, is easy to use, and of course this gives you a totally edible support system. So this could be pushed into the buttercream on the top of the cupcake, and then of course I've got my, as I said, cherry blossom flower there. And this also shows just another example of cookies. So this is actually a basket cutter, and I've done this as a rattan basket, and then I've actually done the little like a mini dogwood and then the little cherry blossom, which are both shown in my Flower Pro Book 1. But I've just done these without wires. I've actually used the center, the mold there for making the baby's breath, and the mimosa for the center of the little dogwoods. So you can use this technique of the rattan basket weave also for traditional baskets as well. But that just gives you some ideas of course, other things made using the bamboo and also the rattan little mold that is going to, carry the theme of the sort of maybe the bamboo from the wedding cake or from a birthday cake or luau themed cake through to the other little confections you have at the party. So I hope you've enjoyed this video showing how to use my Flower Pro bamboo mold, and we'll have lots of fun using that on cakes and cookies and lots of other different things, including also crafts as well, those of you that do crafts. This is wonderful to use for a bamboo frame. You can use this on cards and all different applications with air drying clay. Remember to check out my other video, which is going to be on lifelike bamboo, where I'll be using the mold to make three-dimensional pieces of bamboo, including also the foliage, which is going to be made using my Flower Pro wedding foliage mold. So until next time, this has been Nicholas Lodge. Sweet wishes. See you soon. Bye.